Well, I have seen a lot of things over the week since I have seen you last. That on the eve of viewing this eclipse of the sun, not only was the sun shadowed, but the skies themselves, the very skies, were shadowed in the days following. It seemed that many, thinking they could weather the storm, found that their home was destroyed, or the days after would be so miserable that they would have to end up leaving anyway. Some never expected the kind of weather event. For a lot of the catastrophe happened in other areas that weren't expecting it. Their whole house flooded in an event it seems no one ever expected in some of the most populated cities in the United States. All in the midst of other storms on their way, other anxiousness out there, other trials and tribulations, fires in the west, 3 storms in the Gulf, and all the other things that seem to be before us. Bills, insurance companies, floods, everything. Even now, a hurricane is hitting the shores of our coast. What I have discovered in all of this is that it does not matter how much wealth you acquire in this life. It does not matter how much fame or what job you have in this life. What color your skin is, what language you speak. It seems that the great equalizer of humanity are these perilous events that we seem to go through. That you do not value money at this particular time in your life, because the storms themselves do not value how much money you have in your bank. They do not value what language you speak, and the storms do not know what color your skin is. Yes, these storms have no prejudice whatsoever. They simply destroy all equally. And it seems through the destruction and the aftermath of the storms that people finally realize that color, that wealth, that social classes that have so separated us and compartmentalized our love mean nothing in the wake of such a storm. I wonder if people finally realize in such a storm that life is what is most important. Not all these things that we spend our whole life accumulating and waste our time trying to get so we can feel more fulfilled for a moment, just to have it taken away in an instant. You see, people pray. I hear it. People pray for protection of their goods. And it seems that praying for safety is secondary. And I just wanted to bring out that in the midst of these moments, when we're happy that our goods have been protected, if they have been protected, and it seems the higher we climb off the materialism and the things we acquire, and the success of life, and what the world tells you success is, it seems the more grateful we are in those things that have been protected in the storm. Yet, in these storms, yes, the rich and the poor alike are running from the storm, caught in the lines of traffic. It does not matter how much money you have when the gas tanks are empty and you cannot run any further. The hotels do not care what your name is when you're stuck there between cities. Yes, the wealthy might have more means to do so. They might have the capacity to get out of the wake of some of these things. But sometimes it is the poor left to live through the horror of the storm because they did not have the means to leave. Sometimes it is the wealthy left to live through the horror of the escape, being trapped in these lines. But it is in the wake of the aftermath of the storm, in that brief moment, when neighbors finally talk to each other. Friends actually check on each other. Churches actually go out and live the gospel, maybe for the first time. And people who have talked so ugly about Christianity throughout the society we live in actually have no voice as the rebuilding is happening. Because it is the Christian who is there sorting goods to give to people. It is the Christian who is choosing to live out the gospel. For it is the Christian who jumps into the dumpsters of people's lives and cleans out the old memories that have been washed away. It is the Christian who checks on you, who takes care, who understands your pain. Despite the pain they're going through themselves, they look past it and they go help you out. This is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced. And it is only in these moments that all Christians are the same. From the Osteen churches to the Lydyville churches. From the thriving churches to the dead churches. One cause to live out the gospel. As it says in James 5:1-9, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, your garments have become moth-eaten. Your gold and your silver have rusted, and their rust will be a witness against you, and will consume your flesh like fire. It is in the last days where you have stored up your treasure. Behold, the pay of the laborers who mowed your field, and which has been withheld by you, cries out against you. And the outcry of those who did all the harvesting has reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. You have lived in luxury in this life, on this earth, and led a life of wanton pleasure. You've chased after pleasure. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and put to death the righteous man. He does not resist you. He just allows you to use him. Be patient, therefore, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. Behold, the farmer waits for the precious produce of the soil, being patient about it until it gets early and the late rains come. But to be patient, strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is now. Do not complain, brothers, against one another, that you yourselves may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing right at the door before you." Now you might say, "Pastor, why bring this up now in this time of calamity?" Well, it is because often we do not realize how much we put our value into things until the times like this, when those things have been completely stripped and removed from us. It is like, for once, we have a clear vision of just what it's like in the struggle. We see our neighbors as people again. Instead of setting value statements on them, of them having a boat or a car or a house or whatever it is, we understand and see how much we have focused on human aspirations rather than the humans we come into contact with. Our own children even. Or sometimes whole communities become so focused on the common cause of wealth, we become like the church in the end times. Yes, we have wars on who will mow the lawn first. Yes, it's described in Revelations. And to the angel of the church of the Laodicean, write this: the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God, says this: I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were one of the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot or cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Because you say, I am rich, and I become wealthy, and I have need of nothing. And you do not know that you are wretched and miserable and poor, blind and naked. I advise you to buy from me gold refined by fire, and may you become truly rich with white garments, and you may clothe yourself, and that the shame of your nakedness may not be revealed. And the eye salve to anoint your eyes, that you may see those whom I love. You see, it's in these storms. This is what this is saying right here. Is once all this stuff is stripped from you and you actually wear the white garment of Christ, you can finally see those whom I love. I reprove and I discipline those I love. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and I knock. And actually in the Greek, I stand at the door and I'm knocking. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I am just to come in, enter their hearts, and I will dine with him, and he will dine with me.
Amen.
You see, in our wealth, and look, I know some of you, look, I'm not wealthy, right? You're thinking, I know, you think, look, I'm not Trump, okay? I know you're thinking that. Our poorest people in America, the poorest people in America, are extremely wealthy compared to the vast masses of the world. You see, in our wealth, we seem to feel we have no need of God. Yet when all is stripped away, we discover just how naked we are before the Lord. Because it's in that we finally seek God for what He truly wants in our life. Not this prosperity stuff. God has no concern about you having a brand new Cadillac. He does not care about that. He cares about your soul. He's never been concerned about you having the biggest things in life. He's always been concerned about you having the biggest heart in life. And a heart towards your neighbor. Some wealthy know this and have not been consumed with the pride of life. Some poor are in a worse condition than the wealthy because they actually envy the wealthy for the things they do not even have. Yes, they are prideful in what they do not even possess. I know you've met people like this. Oh, I know this person, they have this. They actually become prideful in the things that other people have, as if they own them themselves. And that seems to be a worse condition. Because at least the wealthy have something tangible and they understand when it's stripped away, I have nothing and I see people. But when a poor person has nothing and they're actually envying those for things that they don't even have, they don't even value what's before them. I just posed this warning that in this moment, in a moment, we may be the society. In these catastrophes that happen, there may be a point in our society that we are in the outer rims of existence. We may one day be the society, someday seeking asylum in another country while that country is building a wall against us. I know that seems very far-fetched. And I know that seems hard to understand from our perspective. But just imagine a disaster coming so strongly that we would have to seek asylum in a country we have so rejected our whole life. God is concerned about people. He's always been concerned about people. He doesn't care about your status in life. He cares about your love of your heart. I do not know why I've been allowed to see so many facets of life in my short time of being. I have occupied countries. I have seen hurricanes and storms. I have chosen to actually be through those hurricanes and storms because I wanted to be the presence that was needed when people needed it. I have received in need as I have given in need. Maybe it was so I could speak to you now in this very moment. Maybe it is so I could relate to a varied people from a variety of backgrounds about situations that were out there, that maybe I could somehow speak into their lives when they thought no one could understand. All I know is this, that one of the greatest seductions in life is the accumulation of wealth. It's not even wealth itself. It's the accumulation of it. I need this. I want this. I desire this. I need more. It's the accumulation. It is when we take the Lot path. And let me explain this. It's when we choose the wealthier pasture when we're given a choice, instead of staying in fellowship with our uncle Abraham. Yes, Lot took the path of the wealthy ground and ended up in the wicked city. His uncle Abraham had the right to choose the land. He had the right to choose which pasture. He took his nephew under his wing. He had all the right and the authority over his nephew, but he allowed his nephew to choose. And even after being left by Lot to pursue riches, and Lot being taken captive, it is Abraham that seeks after Lot. Takes all his men, all that he has left, and he chases down this army and frees his nephew. Why does he do this? Because he values relationship, not as wealth. Even though the kings of the land offered him wealth, because he rescued the people of that land, Abraham refused the wealth and that came from man. He refused it. He went back to his own land and his own field that he tilled. Abraham focused on relationships, and it was wealth that, yes, was added to him, but his focus was never what was given to him. It was always about relationships. This is exposed by how he risked his life. He kept his priorities straight, and it was nothing for him to choose to risk his life. However, his nephew was not ever content with the better pasture. He sought the luxuries of the city. He went to the best pastures. He had the best sheep. Yet, soon after, he winds up in the city itself. It says in the Hebrew, away, just like he gazed at the pasture, he eyed it in a similar way that Eve eyed the apple, or whatever fruit it was, of the tree of knowledge. His wife turned to stone, seeking these luxuries. His son-in-law stayed behind, seeking these luxuries. They were destroyed because of these luxuries. There was nothing to extend his name beyond himself, and his legacy he taught to his children was never to be satisfied. That's what Lot taught his family. Don't ever be satisfied with what you have. Why even his daughters submitted into sin. The Lot story is meant to expose the end result of a life that seeks a selfish gain. Now, some are blessed with wealth. But God never expected us to value that more than the suffering of people. This story begins with Lot under the wing of his uncle. It continues with the separation of two families and Abraham saving Lot. But it does not continue with Lot wanting to return to Abraham. Even though Abraham did all of this for his nephew, it does not end with his nephew saying, I'm sorry. Let me go be back with you. It ends with the destruction of all the material wealth of Sodom, first taken by foreign armies and then destroyed by fire. Some may see the destruction that comes from nature as the wrath of God. And this is in Scripture. It does happen like this. Some may think that hurricanes equalize and decompartmentalize our feelings for others. In fact, in one moment, we actually can choose to love people again. Maybe setting our priorities right. Maybe it's a blessing that these things actually happen to get us to see straight again. I mean, it is only in the flood, hurricane, and the fire that people make conscious choices. We look at all we have, or the things that are before us. Of all the things, in those moments, we decide very carefully and very quickly what is the most important thing I will take with me out of this building before it is destroyed. Well, what if we lived our lives in such a way that our priorities were focused on the things that were most important? What if we lived our lives in such a way that we were escaping a flood and a hurricane every day, and we lived with those priority things, the things that you pulled out of that building, those things being most important in your life, and you focused on those things rather than everything else that the devil wants to distract your life with? We focused on the things that set right in eternity. But what I see the tragedies do most, and what I see that most exemplifies why these things must happen, is after these events, after these catastrophes, I see acts of compassion that I may never see again. It is only after these events that we finally become human. It is like only after a hurricane do people forget about race and economics, social classes, and what side of the tracks you grew up, what kind of accent you have, whether you're from New York or down south. So we might feel like the judgment has come, or that the great leveling has come, or it may just the natural order of things that just must be out there. But what I do know is this, that it is in these times of peril where being a Christian is allowed to be exposed. It goes beyond all social barriers that are out there. It does not want a wall that separates people. It does not separate or compartmentalize our love. It only wants to rebuild. And it is only concerned about relationships. I do think that time is getting shorter and shorter, and that the day draws closer that the Lord will come. I do believe that. And it seems that the higher that we climb as a nation, separating ourselves from other nations less fortunate, as we lose compassion for our neighbor, I will say this: it seems like only a hurricane can put us back into proper perspective of valuing what matters most in this life. It is a hurricane that challenges us to choose to retrieve the most valuable things from our house. It is a flood that leaves you stranded and helpless on the roof of your house, unable to select who is going to save you. Yes, it is this event that leaves you with only the thought, will someone save me? And I tell you, there is a great spiritual hurricane whirling all around us. It is about the hearts of men. seeking to ravish your very souls. What will you take in the final moments before this storm hits? Will you take pictures and memories of your loved ones? Will you try to take money and possessions with you? What will you choose to take in this life? Well, I can tell you this. You may want to take many things on that spiritual raft that's before you into eternity. But the only thing allowed to get into the boat is people. All else is going to perish. And we should right now, at this very moment, establish those things as a priority of life. Souls. Souls being the priority of life. Because just like in these floods, where a man shows up in the boat, the only thing getting on the boat is a person. Our soul and the souls of our neighbors. That's what's eternal. Let us live a life that seeks to bring people to the safety of Jesus' embrace before the hurricane hits. Let us pray.